camera rotation in IronCAD 2022 has been improved. For example, if you're in empty space and you rotate, the camera will rotate about the center of the screen. It will also rotate about the geometry. If your cursor is over a particular geometry, it will try to rotate about that point. New in IronCAD 2022 is if your cursor is within a distance of 15% of the screen space near your geometry, it will also try to use that geometry. For example, if my cursor is near here and I rotate, it will rotate about that nearest geometry point. So it makes it very easy to be inside or outside of geometry and get a predictable rotation result, compared to the past where it always rotates about the center. The 3D curve creation tool has been updated to give more control on the creation. For example, by default it gives you a coordinate system of what plane is going to draw in. So if we draw a line, for example, and select our type of line, when we draw or click our points, it'll tell us we're in the XY plane. And we can use certain things like Control key to draw orthogonal to those planes. And we can continue on, it'll give us a new coordinate system on the next point. Hitting Tab will change that orientation, so if, for example, if we want to go vertical, we can go vertical on our line to draw that next. And we can continue just to draw our lines. As an example here, we'll just draw a few lines, change our plane again to draw our profile. Once we're done, we can hit Escape or right-click to finish that command. The 3D curve also supports our previous creation types as well. For example, if we wanted to align these points that we created here in the ends, we can simply select our line, for example, turn on our triball that we had in the past, and we can lock axis and line these lines up. For example, if we want to move this point, we can select the point, use a triball, extend it out, or snap to other points to precisely align our geometry. So a very good combination of allowing us to use the planes to create our 3D curves and also using the triball to make adjustments. The bulk view creation templates now allow you to add additional property information like automatic dimensions, where you can set up various types of dimensions, whether they're ordinate, baseline, or chain dimensions, and their locations. Once you set that up on your templates, you can simply go to your files and run the bulk view creation tool. Using the new settings, the bulk view creation will automatically apply the automatic dimensions to your views to allow you to quickly create new drawings much faster than ever before. New options in the IronCAD drawing allow you to set a dynamic name for the sheet label. This can be useful for your own templates or bulk view creation templates. Simply right-click on your template, go to Sheet Setup, and you'll see options to link to property names. You can link to the document or part properties. For example, we may want to link to various values such as part name, part number. We'll just use part name for our example, and we'll hit OK. Once you have that set, you can save your templates in your default template location, and then use those templates when you create a drawing. For example, we have a part here, and this is our part name. When we right-click on this, create a new drawing, and use our new template that we just saved. Once we place our views, the name will automatically be populated for our label, which is a very handy tool to speed up your drawing creation. The IronCAD drawing environment continues to speed up the detailing process by adding box select creation for specific annotations. For example, our ordinate dimension has now added the ability to box select, where you simply place your origin and then box select the area to create the rest of the ordinate dimensions. You can repeat the process in both directions by simply just running the tool twice, selecting the new origin, and then running the box select tool again to get the creation in the opposite direction. A very handy tool to speed up the process of detailing for the IronCAD drawing environment. A new command in IronCAD 2022 has been added to allow you to copy parts and their constraints to new locations. For example, we have this pen that we would like to copy to these other slots. If you right-click on your pen, you'll see that there's an option that says Copy Link with Constraints. When we select that, it tells us which type of constraint we're looking for. In this case, it's the pen slot. We simply select on another slot, and we can create a copy or a link, and it'll actually create that object in that location. We can continue to do this. For example, pick another location and create link. We can create a link as well. Once we hit OK, we can see that we have a copy shape and a link shape to the original. This can be done on single constraints or multiple constraint objects. For example, this part has 3 constraints. If we right-click, we can go into the same command, Copy Link with Constraints, and it gives us all the commands to apply the constraints to new locations. For example, the first one is the mate. It's highlighting the color that it's currently mated to. You just select the face that you want to create the mate to. Then you would go to the line. So it's telling you that this face is aligned to this location, which in our case we need to actually line it to this face out here. And then our last one is lined here, which we're going to rotate it to the other side by selecting on that face. And we can select Create Copy or Link. In this case, we'll create a link, and notice it'll create that object to the other side. Once we hit OK, that is applied. We can see the constraints getting created, and if we make a change to our model, we can see that both of those objects will maintain their constraints based on how they were defined. So a very handy feature to allow you to recreate new objects in new locations with the existing constraints. New options in the ordinate dimension allow for elevation dimensions. For example, in our scene, our 3D model is located 60 units above the 0 location in the Z direction. This is to denote the elevation height. When we go to our drawing, we can now zoom into the area where we want to detail and add an ordinate dimension. And we can place the ordinate dimension on our drawing for various locations, and it'll give us our default ordinate dimension tool. If you right-click on the origin, you have a new option called Use as Elevation Dimension. If you select that, it'll take that elevation as the origin and then add the values to the rest of the ordinate dimensions. This is useful for creating elevation dimensions in the drawing. Profile handles on sketches and features are very useful. For example, on our profile, we can see handles appear on every element of the sketch. This is handy that we can modify this without actually going into the sketch. However, it's sometimes difficult that these automatically change, especially when you're making changes like setting the snap point. If we move to a new location for our snap point, when we released and moved back over, in the past, it would actually reset again. In our case, this now has a behavior will maintain that setting until you click off the curve, so that you can do things and setting snap points to different locations. It will maintain that until you click off and click back onto the sketch, then it will reset the behavior. In IronCAD, you can create parameters on your IntelliShapes and use the handles to drive those. We've made this easier in IronCAD 2022 by simply right-clicking on any handle and setting the option Create Parameter. This will allow you to create 2 types of parameters, a driving and a reference. For example, we'll create a parameter and we'll call it a driving. A driving parameter means when I set the value, it will actually drive that shape. It also creates a parameter in our parameter table with that expression and that value so that you can drive it specifically here in the parameter table. The other type of parameter is a reference dimension. If we go ahead and create a parameter on our other handle and type in a name for that and select reference, what this does is it actually grays out the parameter value and actually is pulling the value from the handle. So when we change our handle, this value changes. It also will change that value that's listed in the parameter table. You can see here it actually pulled that value and it's actually pulling it from our size box width value. This is useful to create very complex parameters inside of here, or just even simple ones, like we want to create a parameter that's using our predefined parameters to drive our other handle. When we make a dynamic change, we can do that here. So now when we change our handle, we can dynamically change the length handle. So this is very useful to create your parametric models in IronCAD to easily create parametric relations on the size box shape sizes. In the IronCAD drawing, it may be necessary to create dimensions between center lines. For example, in this case of this handrail, we want to have a dimension between these two particular pipes. If we add a dimension, our current capabilities, we can't snap to the intersection of center lines. If you try to put a dimension between two center lines, it will give you that dimension, but not necessarily the parallel dimension that you need. To overcome this, we've enhanced the intersection tool found under our intersection types. There's an intersection tool, and if you can create an intersection between center lines. So if we pick our two center lines here, we can create an intersection point. In this case, it's just a marker point. We'll create another one on the other end. And this creates our two marker points that I've highlighted here in yellow. Now we can create a dimension between those particular points to create our parallel dimension that we're trying to find for that spacing. So a very handy tool to allow you to create the intersection lines between center lines. New options have been added for size box handles to set limits. For example, on our IntelliShape, if you go to the IntelliShape properties, you'll see new options under the size box tab to set minimum and maximum size limits. For example, maybe we only want to allow this to go down to a size 4 and grow to a size 12. When we hit OK, our part will adjust to make sure it fits into those requirements. Now, if we try to drag our handle, notice it will only go to those sizes and will not allow me to drag past those particular sizes, which is a very handy feature to allow users to work within confined requirements on parts, assemblies, or even IntelliShapes. In IronCAD, we use handles to dynamically size our shapes. We can also be precise on our changes by holding the Control key, and that will set the snap increments on our handles. That snap increment is controlled under the common ribbon, under handle snapping, where you can set in your precise value. This controls all the shapes in the scene. For example, our block, when we hold the Control key, will snap to those increments. If we select to our cylinder and do the same thing, it will snap to those same increments. New in IronCAD 2022 is the ability to control snap increments per shapes. For example, we can go to our block, go to the IntelliShape properties, go to the size box tab, and you can select on any type of snap increment handles that you would like to set. For example, I can set both directions of the handles, since there's two handles on each side, to different values. I can set one side for 0.25, and I can set another side to 0.5, and hit OK. And this is on our length handle, which now I don't even have to hold the Control key anymore. When I drag this one, it's snapping to 0.5. If I drag the other one, it's snapping to the 0.25. So this overrides the control handle behavior and allows us to set perfect snap increments for any shape that we want. So for example, on our shape over here, I've got this set to snap to 0.1 increments to dynamically size it to exact values, and I've got my cylinder to a different size snap increment, which only jumps to 0.25 on the pulls. So I can quickly size my geometry to the exact size. This can be set on any part, assembly, or feature level handles to control the desired behavior.